common question we get asked is the type of decking these rail cars come with. Some have wooden decks, some have steel decks, and some have no decks. So in this video I thought I would show you what all three look like. We happen to have all three types of, well, we have lots of different bridge decks in our yard right now. So this is a good opportunity for us to show you what the options are. This is a 60-foot long rail car, and these 60-footers, it's very common that they come with no wooden deck at all. So that's kind of what they look like. Now, if we were going to convert this into a bridge, we're going to take all these pieces here. We're going to cut them off so the deck is relatively flat all the way across. And then what we would do is run some wood from there all the way across to here. You know, they just deck board just like that. We would have to screw it down to to the steel frame. Otherwise, we can put a steel pan on here. We can put a steel deck on here. This is just a nice raw structure that we can put anything on top of. Now, let me go next to over here. We have a 40-foot deck. Now, this 40-foot deck, it's most common that these 40-footers have a wooden deck. Okay, they seldom ever have steel. They seldom ever come without a deck. But this is, you can see here, that's about an 1.5 inch deck, and that runs lengthwise on this deck right here. See that? All the boards run lengthwise. Underneath here are, let me get over here in the sun a little bit. You can see the cross members. You can see one right here. Right, you can see a cross member right there. You can see one there. So they're about 14 inches on center, and they go from that beam right there is 24 inches tall. So it goes from that beam to that beam. Those cross members do, and that wood sits right on top. Okay, so that's what a 40-footer. That's pretty typical of a 40-footer with a 2x wood decking, runs lengthwise on the deck. Let's take a look at a 20-footer real quick. Here we are, one of our 20-foot. This is one of our rentals that came back. You can see that the wood is still a 2x. Maybe that's closer to 2.5 inches. So you can see that. Hopefully you can see that cross member. Those cross members are about 14 inches on center or so, and the deck boards run lengthwise on the bridge. Now on these, what we would do, what we would recommend, is still putting another layer of wood on top of that, but the boards would lay across this way. Instead of running lengthwise, they run widthwise on the bridge. And all we're doing there is screwing wood to wood. We may also screw into this beam over here to that's a 1 foot tall I-beam on these. Okay, so that's what a 20-footer with the board running lengthwise looks like. Here we have a 60-foot long rail car. This one just came in, so it's still kind of tall on these blocks over here. But let me show you what the wooden deck looks like on these. So this has a good wood deck. You can see on this one though, the boards run widthwise on the bridge and not lengthwise. Let me go up on top, show you what that looks like. Alright, you see that these boards here in the middle, they do run lengthwise. That's some of them do come with the boards here in the middle that run lengthwise. That's just sitting right on top of that main box beam. We call the 60-footer without a wood deck. This is exactly the same kind of rail car. This one has a wooden deck on top of it. So the oftentimes the wood deck goes from here all the way across to the other side. This one happens to have these chalk tracks that run the length. So it made more sense for the railroad to mount these boards lengthwise instead of widthwise. You can see that there's also a chalk track that runs the length on the sides over here. This car overall is about 10.5 foot wide. So that's the thickness of this wood. It's usually closer to 3 inches. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. So it's a little bit thicker, and the wood's also much better. This is usually a hardwood, whereas the 40-footers and the 20-footers, usually it's a little bit softer wood. That's what it looks like. And this deck is actually in really good shape. Sometimes the boards are missing, sometimes they're cracked, On the 60 footers, the 20 footers and 40 footers, usually they're all in good condition, but the 60 footers, the choices are either a wood deck like this one, no deck like that rail car we saw back over there. That one over there is the one we saw with no deck at all. Next we're going to look at these 90 footers. Those have a steel deck. They're upside down right now, but I'll show you what a steel deck looks like. So the 60 footers, the options that they may come in is no deck at all, a wood deck, or a steel deck. Usually what's most common is a bad wood deck where boards are missing. So this is a good car because it has or a good wood deck because all the boards are still in great shape, which is kind of unfortunate because on this job we're actually taking all this wood off because the client wants a concrete deck, so we're going to remove all the wood and put a steel pan down. Let's go take a look at a steel deck. Take a look at a steel deck. One thing I wanted to show you was how this wood is actually secured down. They have these really cool clips. So this is a bolt that goes through the wood. On top you'll see that that head up on top, but then you have this little clip here. So that's what really holds this wood deck down. These are just these little clips. So if I were to unscrew this little tab here, you can see this board's kind of loose right now, but it's perfectly in place. It's not going up. Oh, I guess I can even move it. Let's see that. See if I can pan out a little bit. But it's not going to come up because this little retainer tab is holding it down. And I bet all these boards are kind of like that. And that's what holds them all down. And you have the same thing over here, holding this side down. That nice new bolt here. Another new bolt there. Okay, so if we want to remove this wood, we would have to cut all these tabs, go through here and cut all these tabs. We wouldn't mess with undoing the bolts. We would just cut all the tabs, and then the wood would just come right up. And then once we got one side up, we would just peel the other side back. And that's the only thing holding up this wood right here. This is that chalk track that I showed you up on top. Okay, maybe I can get a better look of how thick these boards are. There you go. Yeah, they're pretty good sized boards, like 3 inches thick, maybe even 3.5 on that one. All right, well this is one that looks like they tacked this down. Instead of replacing it, they just tacked that one down so this wood wouldn't come up. I suppose that'll work. Looks like this one was tacked at one point. This one was tacked, but it looks like they replaced this board here, so they put a new retainer tab here. These are called floor clips, by the way. Floor clips. Nothing fancy. And the last type of steel deck I want to talk to you about is this 90 footer. Same type of steel deck that would go on a 60 footer. And we can also apply it on a 40 footer, but doesn't come, I guess, standard. Dismiss this I-beam here. This is something we're adding to the rail car, so just ignore that. Pretend that's not there. That's pretty custom. These plates that we're adding are pretty custom too. That's something we do in our shop to stiffen up the rail car. But we want to look at it as a deck. So this is a deck, the steel deck that runs here. It runs the full length. This car is upside down, obviously. Let me get over here in the sun a little bit. So you can see the steel deck goes from the very edge of this rail car all the way over. It's a giant sheet. And these decks typically range from anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick. Sometimes they do go as thick as 1 inch on the 60 footers. They're typically not 1 inch on the 90 footers, but they can be 1 inch on the 60 footers. On the 90 footers, they're usually either anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and they work great for just about every application. So even inside this pocket here, hopefully there's enough light. You can see there's a steel deck all underneath there. Okay, so steel deck on the 90. That's a 60 footer with a wooden deck. And that's a 60 footer with no deck, and that's a 40 footer over there. The 20 footer is around here somewhere. That's it.